So this is a visualization of the creative cycle that I made after my first year of business. Now, my first year of business opened up all at the same time my relationship to myself, money, others, responsibility, being seen in the public eye, using my voice. All of these channels opened up all at once. It was very overwhelming. I did not have the self-awareness and tools to navigate what it is that I was experiencing, to the point that it led me to a state where I could not only not provide for myself, but at the same time, I felt like I could not create anything anymore because I was so afraid of people's judgment and getting it wrong, making a mistake, all of these things. I could only verbalize, I feel creatively blocked. I feel like I can't create anything anymore. And so I then met who then became my life coach. We went through a beautiful 3-month mentorship that was all about detangling the codependence that I had to my work and how I tied my sense of self, my worth to anything that I did. And from that experience, I then drew what the creative cycle looked like to me. And what has this creative cycle gifted me? It has gifted me a more conscious relationship to the creative process of anything. And with this awareness, with this skeleton, with this roadmap, this framework, with this visualization, I can now know where I am in the creative process and the energy, the attitude, the mindset that is required of me in this particular phase. And through the sequential dance of the whole process, I now do not fall victim to the illusions built on the expectations of a particular feeling that I'm expecting to feel. For example, a lot of times we don't move because we expect to feel so excited, so inspired, so clear about what it is that we're doing. We're just bulldozing through the whole thing. But we can't expect to have that if we're still maybe at the beginning of the phase. And so having an awareness of what phase you are in the creative process and consciously bringing the respective mindset, energetic profile, attitude to that phase and dancing through this whole cycle, every sequential phase of it allows you to move, to do it, to create, and be in a state of creativity, of creation, be in a state of creativity, which is life energy. You're alive. So I'm gonna be breaking down what the whole cycle is created by. But this is what it all looks like zoomed out. And it is an honoring to the fact that every creative cycle goes up and it goes down. If you release the expectation of having to continuously be in a linear ascending line, and instead you're going through this beautiful cyclical, like the waves of the ocean rhythm, you are free. You are free and you are in a state of co-creation with all that is. So I'm going to be breaking down each phase of the cycle. The core things to understand is that the cycle is divided in 3 main phases, which is exploration, creation, and evaluation. And that everything follows the life-death life cycle. It is extremely liberating and productive and efficient to begin each creative process, to enter the relationship of what it is that you feel called to create with the awareness that this too is a cycle that follows the life-death-life cycle. Everything that will ascend will descend. If you consciously enter the creative process with the awareness that there are specific phases that require of you a specific mindset and attitude and energy, and that each phase has a defined period of time that leads to the next phase, then you don't fall victim of illusions and expectations that may be running in your head, in which you may be expecting of yourself to have, for example, the clarity, the excitement. It does not serve you in any way to expect to feel the clarity and the excitement that you may perhaps feel here, when you may still be at the very beginning of the phase and you have not allowed for your example inner child to experiment like in an insane kindergarten kid in the mud. If you have not allowed that phase first, there is no point of expecting of yourself to feel what you will be feeling here. And so by having this visualization, you can have a more conscious relationship to the creative cycle, which allows you to not fall victim to perfectionism, expectations, your inner teen brat full of expectations that will not move if it doesn't have already the things that it so wishes. Okay, so let's get into it. The creative cycle believes that everything starts at point zero, at stillness. In stillness, you can really listen. When we experience the high, the life, the excitement, the inspiration during a creative process, it is very tempting to want to feel all those same emotions, all that energy, all that high in every single thing that you are gonna be doing. The truth is that if you don't come into this new creative cycle naked, like a blank piece of paper, you are going to be overcharging something that has not been created yet with so much expectation. That expectation is going to only make you a sponge to disappointment. And that is why we have an idea and we don't follow through with it. And we want to quit all the time. And then we go into spirals of shame and disappointment because we lose trust in ourselves. So the creative cycle believes that all creation begins at point zero, at a place of stillness. Go into the next creative cycle naked, empty-handed. Each cycle, each creative process, everything that you create is a new relationship. Do not expect for this relationship to feel and to give you what you experienced in your past relationships. Go in there still, empty, empty-handed, disarmed. I am ready to receive divine inspiration. And then light bulb moment. Boom. Idea. Once you have that light bulb moment, you enter the exploration phase, which is divided in other stages. Exploration is the action of exploring an unfamiliar area. The exploration is moist, unknown territory. Your decision and commitment to bring your inspiration into creation initiates one cycle of creation. So you saying, this light bulb moment is very interesting to me. I am now consciously deciding to explore it. The first phase is exploration, the act of exploring an unfamiliar area. Release the pressure of forcing yourself to know what you're doing and how you're doing it. Instead, show up in alignment with what the phase you currently are in is. Exploring unfamiliar territory. Navigate this phase with childlike wonder. So, in the exploration phase, you want to consciously put in the driver's seat of your card your kindergarten self, your inner child. You have an idea go out into Wonderland and explore this in the most bizarre, unconventional, playful, non-judgmental way, where you're linking things in a way that you've never done before, like a child would. And give yourself the window of space to explore this like a mad child that is overflowing with life. That is what we crave. This phase can be subdivided in 3 different stages that are sequential: draft, playing, and experimentation. Drafting is about a preliminary version of a piece of work. We put our inner child, kindergarten self, in the driver's seat. That kid is leading. The first thing to do is to draft in the rawest possible, most instinctive way. Let yourself express how you are processing, feeling this idea. What this means is, do not go out looking for inspiration yet of other people's work that may have a similar theme or topic to yours. Instead, allow yourself to sketch, to dance, to express it with your body, to sing. What is your most primal, instinctive way of processing this idea, this light bulb moment that has flowed through you? Okay, and then it's time to level up that playfulness to a new level. What does playing mean? Playing means doing without purpose. It is super important for this exploration phase to be approached with an extremely instinctive, playful, no expectation of a particular result way. Only in this way can you come up with new solutions that keep your creative spirit alive. Once you have given yourself the space to explore this in the most childlike, wonder, playful way, can you then invite your inner teenager, inner inventor girl, who is between 6 to 14? What does experimentation mean? The action or process of trying out new ideas, methods, or activities. Observe and evaluate how you have instinctively expressed your inspiration vision up to this point, and start connecting the dots methodically. This involves breaking down complex issues into manageable parts, following a logical sequence of steps, and considering all relevant factors to arrive at a thorough solution. This is the phase where you begin to identify what you're going to create and how. What does this mean? So in the previous phase, your inner child led with hands in acrylics. There is no logic. I am just mad, having the best time of my life. Once you then lay down in front of you all that you have created, can you then bring in a version of yourself that begins to connect the dots of what it is that you are creating? What it is and how is it that you are processing this information? And what is the information? The information is this divine information that has channeled through you from outer space. It is an idea that has come your way. You have seen it and you have decided to come in relationship with it. You have felt it here. And then after expressing it in the rawest format, can you then truly see what it is that you, in your uniqueness and originality, individuality, you can really see how you are processing it. And then from there, something interesting can happen. Okay, so what happens when we go through this phase? We begin to see the dots. We begin to connect the dots of what it is that is coming through. And then we can set the intention. The intention is a thresh point of the cycle. There are 2 core thresh points, and that is intention and wisdom. And that is what separates the 3 phases of the creative cycle, in which there is a beginning phase, then there is the execution phase, and then there is the conscious descent of the cycle coming to closure for another cycle to begin. Okay, so intention. What does intention mean? Intention means an aim or plan. This is where you commit to the execution of one concept and one methodology. This is the conscious, purposeful, and directed thought or plan that reflects your desired outcome, goal, or objective. You set your intention to focus your attention and energy on a specific aim. What does that mean? You have an idea. A lot of times we have many ideas, no? We can stay forever at this place where we are not really committing to anything, but we have so many ideas, and then we feel stuck because we don't know what to choose. You always have the power to choose what idea you are going to commit yourself to, with the awareness that every cycle comes to an end. But what do you gain when you commit yourself to the execution of one idea? You gain wisdom. And only through that wisdom can you then move forward to create something even better. But if you don't commit yourself to anything, you're going to stay stuck at the same place forever, and you're going to be asking yourself the wrong questions, which is, oh my God, I have so many ideas, but I'm not going to commit because it goes through every possible inner child trauma, every single reason as to why you can, which are all valid. But at the same time, you also always have the power to commit yourself to an idea and enter the creative cycle and be in a state of creative productivity, aka you are alive. You're alive and growing. And we can have so many ideas here, but we don't commit ourselves because it doesn't feel clear to us yet. The truth is that by going through the mysterious unknown, the moist unknown territory, with zero expectation, eyes of childlike wonder, the playfulness of your inner child, who problem solved, who expressed this idea, who processed this idea in the most unconventional, you have never seen it yourself before way. And then you brought in your inner inventor girl who started to connect the dots. The combination of the two puts you in a position where you finally have the clarity that comes after you feel satisfied of having explored, like a child, something that you haven't explored yet. And that is really what we crave. And ultimately, that is what we truly crave before we begin to commit ourselves to something. Like, we really are hungry for that childlike, playful wonder. But if you don't give yourself the space to do that, then you are going to expect yourself all this adult clarity when really your soul is craving to be wild and free and playful and do things without any expectation and purpose. Okay, but if you give yourself the space to do it, eventually you end up to a point where you're like, oh, actually, like, it's really interesting how bim boom bam, and I now know what I will commit myself to. So once we surpass the threshold point of setting an intention, begins phase 2, creation. What is creation? The action or process of bringing something into existence. Creation is where you actually create. This is where you, this is where you actually, this is where you're gonna execute. This is where you get things done. This is where your inner execution monster comes through. Okay, what does creation mean? The action or process of bringing something into existence. This is where you actually create. It's when you are doing it with the how. Oftentimes we block ourselves right after the point of inspiration, the first point, because we crave the clarity of the what and how present in this phase only. You crave the clarity that is present here at the very beginning, and you expect to have that clarity and that feeling of, I know exactly where I'm going, when you haven't even given yourself permission to explore the mystery of this new territory. Okay, we expect ourselves to have this clarity, what it is that we're doing and how we're doing it, which are only acquired by going through every phase. And the process goes up and down, illustrating the creative process of actualizing the idea or plan, and having to intentionally refine it, bring it to completion. In the creative phase, you are in execution mode. There's a timeline, there's a deadline. You are going to do the thing, and at one point you're going to be like, okay, we need to bring things to completion. That is what we're saying. Doing it with the how, refinement, bringing creation to completion. You see how in this phase now, we don't have our toddler leading here. We have our inner adult who gets shit done, which is super fun. But we expect this drive, clarity, and energy at the beginning, because also, like, if we are in our adult selves, like, we think that that's how the execution works, but in the beginning you need to have that tenderness to put yourself in a position where you're like, I am so freaking excited to explore this thing that I've never done before. I have all these resources I've never like used in this way, and now I'm gonna get it done, because I know that if I commit myself to the execution of this, I will gain the wisdom. Second threshold point that begins the evaluation phase. What is wisdom? Wisdom is the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. Wisdom is the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. You can only know how to do something once you have done it. We crave to know the how of things, when really we only know the how once we do it. So, after undergoing one full cycle, at least once, of creation, you will have the wisdom of what it is that you were desiring to create in the first place, and you will have the how to do it, and you will have the lived experience of having undergone one creative process that has given you now the knowledge and the wisdom to execute one solution. This problem can be, or this thing can be created and done with this methodology. But most importantly, you have now the memory of, wow, look at all the things that I can create in this way, in a way that maybe I've never done something before, in a way that I've never explored before. And it opens you to infinite possibilities. It opens you to infinite possibilities. Once you have this wisdom that is only acquired by undergoing one creative cycle, you can then know how to do it better, in a more lean way, in a more productive way, an efficient way, but you have so many new ideas. And so then you see how this point, stillness, so at this point when you consciously descend, conscious decline from cycle of creation, expressing gratitude, gathering of solutions and insight, what worked, what didn't, preparation of the next cycle. This is what happened in evaluation. You bring the cycle down consciously, and in the process, you say, thank you for this, the opportunity of having gone through this process. Thank you for the inspiration that I'm not gonna hold. And the relationship that you have just lived with this thing that you created is so singular and special to this thing, and you are now letting it go for the purpose that it has served. Seeing it as a cycle releases this illusion of having to constantly be in this linear ascending road. And if you honor the fact that everything follows the life-death life cycle, you allow things to be what they were, and you take with you the wisdom and the gratitude and the memory that you can do anything, because you're magical. But especially if you have a roadmap of how to approach a project and that there's different phases that belong to the creative process that require of you a mindset, an attitude, an approach that is different, like when you're exploring, you're playing, doing without purpose, and then it's time for you to show up with a plan, with rules, with responsibility. That's your adult self. There is a shift that happens in you somatically if you bring all of these versions of yourself to the table and you have this conscious relationship to the creative cycle. You can execute your ideas. And to this day, I live thinking about this. There are moments where I fall short or victim of the expectations that my inner bratty teenager is bringing to the creative process, and I cannot get things done because I'm expecting for the clarity and the excitement and the methodology to be in front of me before I move. And maybe I'm still here, and then maybe I keep myself stuck here for 6 months, and then I go into my depressive modes, when really all I needed to do was to let go, pick one thing that buzzed up my body and I want to create, and then bringing my inner kindergartner to play and my inner inventor girl to then connect the dots of what it is that child me explored. And also visualizing. The first phase is mystic, new territory that you've never explored before. Let it be what it is. And show up with respect to the phase that you are now in. And then I wholeheartedly know that there will be an intention. There will be clarity here. And with that clarity, with that awareness of, I guess this is what I'm trying to say, I'm going to set the intention of what this creative cycle will be all about. In this creative cycle, I am going to explore X. And I'm going to be executing this particular idea. By executing this particular idea, by bringing this idea to life, I will, first of all, my God, move forward from this phase. Like, let's bring it to life. But I will now know, for example, with my paintings now, I will now know, I will have more clarity of the style as a painter that my paintings will have for this phase of my life. I will have more knowledge of how to create a particular aesthetic that I want to be doing. When I was creating courses, the intention of creating a course was about, okay, I'm being called to be more of a life coach right now. I don't know what my voice is at this very moment, but I'm going to launch this offer, create content, not with the expectation of what I'm going to get out of it, but with the intention of exploring and going deeper into my understanding of what my voice is. Bah, that's an intention. And if that's my intention for this cycle, then I will execute, because that is what I've set out for this particular season to be all about. And then I will execute with a project with a project that has an end to it. No, like, what does success look like for this project? What does the completion of this project look like? Complete. And then, wow, I have no expectation of what it is that will come through this, but for me, it was all about having deeper awareness of what my voice is. And then there's going to be a million other things that are going to be shown to you and given. You're going to have so much wisdom about so many different things that you would have never even imagined to now see and know. And with gratitude, you will then descend and detangle and move forward and strip yourself nude and naked to be open to receive your next light bulb idea. And then you are free, you are grateful, and you're co-creating with it all.